Hey guys, welcome back. One of my daughter's favorite cartoons when she was little was Sailor Moon. Today's YouTube person that we're going to be watching is Determined Dani, and one of the reasons that I stopped at her video was, if you look at her shirt, Sailor Moon. So I ended up watching the first couple minutes, and I thought this is the video that the Venters will want to see. The name of her video is How I Became Obese, but believe me, it's really something. I hope you enjoy.
And I thought I did a really good job of hiding how much I was eating when I was alone at home. I didn't really take into account that I would gain weight when I did that. I don't know, it just never crossed my mind. So I had started gaining weight. On New Year's Day, 2012, one of my good friends was over. I knew I had gained weight, so I was telling her that I wanted to lose weight again. And we decided to weigh ourselves on my scale that I had just got. And I, at the time, had weighed 210 pounds. And for me, that was really shocking. I was extremely unhappy with what I saw on the scale. You know, everybody has their different struggles. Nobody else's struggle makes yours more insignificant. Point being, it was a really big deal to me at the time. I remember I had sat down and talked with Kevin's best friend, Becker. He had sat down and told me the basics of losing weight. Basically, you know, you track what you eat. And of course, you know, you can exercise more. And he had me get like just a little journal thing to write down what I had eaten every day and report to him at the end of the week. I was doing that, and I was doing that successfully, and I got under 200 pounds with his help, which was awesome. But at some point, I gave up, and I don't remember why, but I just slid back into the crappy eating habits again. When I had turned 21 that year, I remember seeing the photo that I think my aunt had taken of me. And I remember looking at myself and being like, who is this? Like, I don't even recognize myself. It was really hard to accept that I looked different because I gained weight. Now, the really hard part. In 2016, I got a phone call from my mom. My dad had just had open heart surgery for the second time. She called me and told me that the surgery went fine. However, early in the morning, she got a phone call from the nurses, and he had suffered a stroke, and they saved his life. But he was kind of in like a medical coma because he was in such bad shape. I remember going to Sacramento, where my dad had had the surgery and was in the ICU. And I saw him. He was connected to a whole bunch of machines and tubes and IVs. It was really hard. My dad was the toughest person I knew. Seeing him so vulnerable like that was really hard.
So at the filming of this video, she was in her 20s. When you're in your teens and you see this happen to your dad or your mom or a family member, that has got to be amongst the hardest things to deal with, and you can feel her pain. So right when I got to this point earlier when I was watching this videos, I was just like, this looks like a video that could really touch people because a lot of us have been through loss. And when you have a weight situation and then you have to throw grief, and with her dad, she has to throw a little extra responsibility now because maybe dad can't move as well. Very, very challenging. If you've ever gone through anything like this, let us know down in the comments.
I just remember being so thankful that they were able to save his life. We knew that it was going to be a long recovery for him. My mom and I were just so relieved that he was still here with us. I do want to mention that during this time, he was also dealing with cirrhosis of the liver. So that was just another complication on top of the stroke and recovering from a second open heart surgery. When he woke up, he was just so angry that he was resuscitated. And he wished he died.
Could you imagine? This is one of the reasons why I tell you guys when we go on our walks, there is something more than just you when it comes to your weight loss. You owe it to your sons, you owe it to your daughters, you owe it to your family members and your friends, frankly, to be your most healthy and to live as long as you can, because look how many people care about you.
He was just so angry and frustrated that he had to go to therapy and his life wasn't going to be the same. And I don't blame him. For the first time in my life, I became depressed. And part of that turns out to be I have Hashimoto's disease. And so we started me on a thyroid medication, but that didn't help the depression. I turned to alcohol. I drank so much to get rid of the pain or get rid of the empty feeling that I would have when I was sober. Because when I had alcohol, I could feel something. When I was sober, I felt dead inside. I also started having extremely bad anxiety and hypochondria over worrying that I was going to have heart problems like my dad or have a stroke like him. Later in 2016, Dad was eventually released from the therapy place and he was doing so well. We got to spend Christmas together at home. I remember the speech therapist coming over and he would ask a simple question and my dad would answer with the correct answer, but also kind of like a long tangent. And it was just really funny. So he's like, okay, well, it looks like your memory's doing perfectly fine. My dad had started like a new exercise and like diet routine so he could lose weight in the hopes that he would be put on a organ transplant list for a new liver due to the cirrhosis. So we went through that. But when I was home and not with my family, when I was with Kevin, he didn't know how to help me or soothe me from the stress of what was going on with my dad. And so I would just drink for comfort. I never talked to anybody about what happened. We were in a new city, far away from our hometown. When I moved, I pretty much lost contact with all of my friends. And when he was at work, I would go buy alcohol and drink. And when he got home, we would drink together. I remember waking up with like so much anxiety and trembling and being super sweaty. You know, some nights I would wake up in a straight panic thinking I'm going to die. You know, I never thought it was the alcohol that could do that to me. PSA, it can absolutely do that to you. In 2017, towards the beginning of the year, I had started seeing a therapist. I was telling her about what was happening with my dad. I am so thankful that I had started seeing her because not only did I need to let off my chest what was happening with my dad because I had no one else to talk to, but also I was able to talk to her about what the trauma I had gone through when I was 19. That was like the best thing I could do for myself at that time. I wouldn't tell her about my drinking problem. She kind of knew. Like I had mentioned it, but I didn't mention how bad it was. And she has suggested I would go to AA, but I never did. We don't really know what happened, but my mom found that he had fallen. He did complain of back pain, and I was like, well, maybe it's because he fell, but the doctors wouldn't believe him. that his back pain was super severe. They just gave him pain pills. They were like, well, hopefully this helps.
That's what I don't understand. How do you give somebody pain pills if they're dealing with liver cirrhosis? Because you figure that would be the worst thing for a person with a bad liver.
A little while later, my mom finally advocated for him, for a doctor to check out his back pain, because for someone like my dad to cry about pain, it was very unusual for him. The only time I ever saw him cry was at his mother's funeral. He was tough as nails. So the fact that he would cry from his back pain was kind of a red flag for us. My mom finally got a doctor to listen to us and get his back checked out. And they found cancer. The cancer was in his bones. That's when we knew that it couldn't be treated. He was already in stage 4. We don't know where it started. He ended up falling a second time at home. And mom called the ambulance and they took him and they admitted him this time because he was really sick. I went back to my hometown to see my dad at the hospital. I remember being so angry that he had worked so hard after his stroke to get better and so hard at his diet, and he lost so much weight to get put on a transplant list. And in the end, it didn't matter. It only took a few days for him to pass away. I was completely heartbroken. I just stopped caring about my body, even though at the hospital he had me promise to not treat my body the way he did when he was younger. I went back home with Kevin and just drank as much as I could all the time. Even though I was in therapy, it was so difficult to talk about my dad and the grief I was going through. And I still had nobody to talk to about this. Kevin wouldn't talk to me because he didn't know how to deal with it, and that's okay. I'm not mad about that. Nobody checked in on me, so I was left at home alone. No job, no car, no money. And the money I would get, I would spend on alcohol.
I always tell everybody when we go on a walk together that not everybody is walking to lose weight. Some people have so much burden on their shoulders. When somebody cuts you off in traffic, when somebody shouts at you from across the room and says something rude and unsettling, sometimes they're in a real bad place. Be decent with people, be kind, because you honestly never know what a person's going through.
I gained a majority of my weight from drinking alcohol. It wasn't me binge eating at this point, it was me binge drinking. My father passed in April of 2017. By the end of that year, I had weighed myself, and I weighed 275 pounds. In 2018, we moved to a different city in the Bay Area, started living with a roommate that we had lived with before. And that seemed to help my mood a lot, being around someone else, because for the past year and a half before that, I was just alone all the time. I started looking for a job and I got hired, and that's when I started working on myself. My job was in retail, so it was physically demanding. I went from 275 to 235. The only photo I have of me at a higher weight was at 265. I avoided all photos at my highest weight, so other than it being on a scale, it's like it never existed. In 2020, the beginning of 2020, before the whole thing, I had made a promise to myself and to Kevin that I would spend more days sober than not. And I kept that promise.
Sometimes people have a lot on their plate And sometimes it leads to weight gain, depression, drinking problems, the whole nine yards. Try to be empathetic towards people, right? Try to know that there's something bigger than just you out there. And when you're losing your weight, it's going to be more than just you that's happy about it. Your family wants you to live a long time, and so do I. So, with that being said, why don't you guys go get your shoes? Let's go for a walk. Well, good morning, inventors. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I was watching a couple videos over the past week about the facts of life. I don't know if that was one of your favorite shows growing up in the 80s, but it was yet again another one of the most popular shows ever. What's really interesting is I feel like when it comes to iconic TV shows and iconic music that we all know and love and have fond memories of, I feel like it's all from the 80s. I feel like after the 80s, everything kind of declined. But again, that's just me. I think we all kind of have fond memories of our childhood, right? And that was one of the shows that I just remember was extremely popular. The show was based around four girls that that went to school with Charlotte Ray. What was her name? Mrs. Garrett. She was kind of the den mom that kind of took care of everybody. But check this out. The four stars of that show were Lisa Whelchel. She played Blair. Mindy Cohen. She played Natalie. She was probably the most loved character, if I remember. Or it might have been Kim Fields, who played Tootie. And then my favorite character was actually Nancy McKeon, who played Jo. Okay? And I always remember Jo would say, didn't she say she was from Poughkeepsie? That's like a 40-year memory of mine. She might have said a different place, but I thought she always said, I'm from Poughkeepsie or something. But anyway, check this out. A lot of people have been asking them over the past couple of decades, when are you guys going to get together and do a Facts of Life reunion show? Because people have wanted to see something like that. And apparently, Lisa Whelchel, who played Blair, and it's funny because Blair, if you guys remember, was kind of the snobby, kind of rich girl on the show, right? And what's funny is that she apparently was in the works to try to make some sort of spin-off show for herself. Or at least that's what Mindy Cohen, who played Natalie, said. As a matter of fact, Natalie said that greedy B-I-T-C-H, that greedy bitch. Apparently, that's the holdup for them doing some sort of reunion show. Lisa Whelchel wants to do her own spinoff. Here's the thing, the show is so old that I don't think Lisa Whelchel's, at least not nowadays, is ever going to be able to get some sort of spinoff approved. But you know as well as I do, they could probably get Hulu or Netflix to do a whole season on them. The reason I say this is one of my favorite shows on Netflix, or actually I should say one of my favorite series on Netflix that I've actually watched a handful of seasons, was Cobra Kai. If any of you guys have watched Cobra Kai, it's the story of Johnny, who was the bad guy in Karate Kid, right? And all of a sudden, he's kind of an alcoholic loser, borderline homeless, just kind of down on his luck type guy. And he ends up reopening up Cobra Kai karate dojos. And it's a pretty good little show for the first couple of seasons. I think they're on season 5 now. After season 2, it kind of started going downhill, in my opinion. But I want to know your guys' thoughts. We all grew up on Karate Kid, and we all grew up on the facts of life. What are your thoughts knowing that the only thing holding up a reunion show of that popular show is Blair? And that figures, doesn't it? And then what's funny is, on the Karate Kid show, you end up really liking Johnny Lawrence. So if you haven't watched Cobra Kai, go to Netflix and binge watch a couple seasons of Cobra Kai. I think you'll love it. Guys, look at that beautiful dog there. I don't remember the name of the show. Wasn't it Shag the Dog, where it had a dog like that? Look at him going like he sees me. Hi, pretty puppy, how are you? Come see me. Oh, he's going home. They always know when I see them that I'm gonna tell their owner, and they're gonna get in trouble. They always know. So the funny thing I want you to remember about this Facts of Life thing was that Mindy Cohen is known for saying that greedy bitch when it comes to Lisa Whelchel, who played Blair, okay? Yesterday, I was talking about how I really didn't have very fond memories of lawyers, and that my lawyer, my buddy from high school, would call me and bill me $300 or $400 for just really goofy, dorky conversations that we would have. And I felt that that was greedy, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of lawyers milk their clients like that. So all of a sudden, I wake up this morning and I hear the story of Aaron Brockovich lawyer Tom Girardi. If you haven't seen this, YouTube or Google Tom Girardi case, and you will be shocked. Well, you won't be shocked, because it's a case of another lawyer milking their clients, in this case for $15 million. So apparently this lawyer, Tom Girardi, is now 85 years old. He's the hubby to Erica Jane. Now, I never watched The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, but apparently Erica Jane stars on that show. She lives an extremely elegant rich woman's lifestyle, and apparently a lot of it has been funded by this lawyer, Tom Girardi. Now, apparently part of the people that he cheated and swindled out of money were his clients from a 2018 Lions air crash. He milked the victims out of $3 million, and I believe they said that he's actually milked his clients for a total of $15 million. So here's this lawyer that's basically taken tens of millions of dollars. The thing that upsets me is the Lions air crash situation apparently happened in 2018. Now, I don't know about you guys, but is it really justice if you wait for a lawyer to become so elderly that now his defense was actually that he has Alzheimer's? Apparently he went up on the defense stand, and one of the things he stated was that, yeah, he kept some money away from his clients, but he was afraid they would have taken that money and unalived themselves. Apparently he said that if he would have given all his money to the victims, that they would have unalived themselves. I don't know if maybe they had situations where they were addicted to drugs and giving them too much money would make it where they would unalive themselves. But either way, horrible defense. They were talking to other attorneys that were like, I'm surprised he took the stand. Most people would recommend against that. But again, here's my problem. 2018, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was 6 going on 7 years ago. You're waiting till a guy's 85. His sentencing isn't until darn near Christmas. So you know what that means? You're probably going to end up finding out Tom Girardi will probably end up unaliving or passing away here in the next handful of months. Because that's what happens to elderly people before they even get thrown in the jail. And what's the point of throwing an 85-year-old that might not even know where he is half the time in jail? You want to get people when they're fresh off the crime. And I just think if it takes 6 or 7 years to get an incredibly elderly man up there on the stand, there's some sort of travesty there. Now, will they be able to take his estate and get his victims some of their money? I'm assuming they will be able to, right? But again, you'd like to think that somebody would actually get punished for doing wrong things. Here's the crazy thing. I'd be willing to bet that if they were to do an audit on every single lawyer and attorney in this country, I'd be willing to bet that Tom Girardi is not in the minority. I'd be willing to bet he's in a vast majority. I think lawyers go out of their way to assure you how they did so many hours on your case. I have a hard time believing that. Again, it's primarily because of my bad experience with lawyers. But lawyers have a real way of kind of having their paralegals do work, milking the clock for whatever they can, and taking money from their clients. I can't pinpoint that on every lawyer, but my experiences have been such where I just feel like every lawyer has dollar signs right there in their eyeballs, you know? That kind of takes me back to Bugs Bunny and stuff. How would they show greed among cartoon characters? You remember they would show their eyes get real big, and they would literally show the S with the bar through it, you know, the dollar signs on their eyes. That's how a lot of these attorneys are. You know, I think that's what's so scary about the world. You could do so much in the world with $1 million, but so many actors and famous people and attorneys, so many of them crush the $1 million plateau. So many of them make tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. And it just blows me away that you end up finding out that so many of these people get their money in unscrupulous ways. There's so much deception. There's so much smoke and mirrors. Everybody always has their hands in the cookie jar, and they never stop. Here's the crazy thing. I would be willing to bet, and I've said this before, here's the rich person's folly. I'd be willing to bet that if he were to leave the earth today, I'd be willing to bet that he probably has 20 or 30 million bucks in the bank. What's that mean, Jesse? Well, it means, Bob, that he probably never had to steal a single penny from any of his clients, and he probably would have been able to live the exact level of lifestyle that he wanted to anyway. You know what I mean? If you make 100 million in your lifetime over a 20 or 30 or 40 year period, and you end up dying with 50 million in the bank, that means that the last decade or two, no matter how you slice or dice it, you worked for free. So now to stain your legacy, to make it where all your family members have to just go to their private schools for, you know, with their head down for a while. Meanwhile, you know as well as I do, he's probably hooked up all his family members with enough money to live the rest of their lives without any problems. That's what gets me. Whenever money's tied up into things, there's usually so many lies, deception, and corruption. All these things are sickening. We need to create laws where, hey, you're found guilty of something heinous. That's where we need to have a speedy trial. Every time somebody has a trial, you know how we were always told growing up, you know, part of your rights are, you know, you have a right to a speedy trial. Well, nobody ever takes advantage of that. They always take the slowest route you can take, and it ends up equating to bad people not having to serve time. If this guy did these travesties way back in 2018, then don't you guys think it's sickening that we're hearing about it now in 2024? Like, that is just wrong on such a high level. It makes you wonder, did this guy go out of his way to delay this court case? Because how many times do you hear that argument? Oh, we need a stay and a recess, Your Honor. We need more time to confer with our clients and get our defense set up. Well, you don't get 5 or 6 years. We're going to trial in 5 or 6 months. That's what it needs to be. People need to be held accountable. And again, if you're a rich, greedy bastard and you're watching this, and only you know if you're a rich, greedy bastard, you're going to end up perishing one day, and you're going to find out that all that money you stole, you never even got around to spending it. And I know people are thinking, Jesse, did you see his wife, Erica Jane? He definitely got around to spending it. I don't know. I saw a picture of the house that they lived in and the closet they lived in. It looks like they had $2 or $3 million worth of clothes. You know, I mean, this is just ridiculous. We need to take these people and we need to, like, seriously make an example of them. Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good. Good. Yourself?
Good, good. Beautiful day, huh?
Fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Guys, today has been the most beautiful day. The wind and everything, it's about 75 degrees. I think the next couple of months are going to be the most beautiful weather here in Arizona. But that means where you live, it might end up being brutally cold. So where I powered through the last 100 days of hot summer, I need you guys to power through the upcoming 100 days of frigid winter. But I want your guys' opinions, because this thought has fired me up. I wonder what made my antenna talk about my lawyer situation yesterday, only to find out about this Tom Girardi situation today. And you guys might be thinking, Jesse, this is kind of old news. We've been listening to this for months about this Tom Girardi case, but that just goes to show you how dedicated I've been to editing at night. I very rarely get to watch my favorite YouTubers anymore because I'm always doing editing, which I love. I can thoroughly say that in addition to walking, guys, this YouTube channel is becoming my hobby. So imagine your two favorite hobbies, walking and doing your YouTube channel. This isn't some sort of punishment. This is a reward for me. I watch a lot of YouTubers. Tell me if you guys have ever watched any of your favorite YouTubers and they'll all of a sudden do this video where they're like, I'm sorry guys, I'm stepping away from my channel. I'm still going to do videos, but instead of weekly, you know, I might do 1 or 2 a month, right? They act like their weekly video is something great to the world, right? It's like bullshit. You got rich off YouTube. Do your videos. Quit acting like it's horrible. They absolutely love doing what they're doing, but they just want to find a way to make as much as they can doing as little as possible. You know, my thinking is I want to make history. I want to be the guy that 30 years from now they say Jesse did the most hours on YouTube by doing a daily video every day for 30 years. So that's my goal. Is that lofty or what? I want to find a way to defy sickness and illness and the whole 9 yards and walk with you guys for 30 years. Is it possible? Who knows? But if I can do it, maybe I can log the most hours in YouTube history. That would be a serious accomplishment. That would be crazy. But I'll use my grandma, the eldest woman mariachi in the world, I think. I'll use her as inspiration. I love these stories. The truth is, if The Facts of Life came out with a show, I wouldn't even watch it. It was one of those shows that I would watch reruns of it after school. But other than reruns and the occasional fresh episode I would watch during the week, I just wasn't a huge fan of that show. I did love Family Ties. I did love The Cosby Show. Do you guys remember The Cosby Show? When Lisa Bonet's boyfriend, God, I forget his name, but there was this funny episode. Tell me you guys remember this one. I think his name was Elton, but I just remember he was having simulation pains. And so when Lisa Bonet on the show got pregnant and was having their child, he felt like pains from the pregnancy. And they did this scene where he's like, oh, and it was just the funniest scene. That show was so wholesome and so good. And because Bill Cosby ended up, doing some pretty heinous things to people, and we found out about it after the fact, every single person on that show ended up being punished for it, I love days like this where I look up and I hear some stories and I think, wow, those are interesting. The reason I think the Tom Girardi thing is interesting is because what are the odds I would be talking about my lawyer situation yesterday? Because you got to understand, I didn't know about this Tom Girardi thing at all. It just popped up on my news feed today on YouTube. So if you guys heard about this, if you think it's a crazy, horrible thing too, if you're a lawyer or attorney or your family members are, and you know in your heart that what I said does not represent them, just know, I know that there's people it doesn't represent. There's no such thing as everybody. But man, there are so many people out there from my whole life and your whole life. It's been a running joke that politicians and lawyers are just considered lesser than. In reality, if your family member was a lawyer or politician, you're going to hold them up here at the mountaintops. And there's a good chance that they are good people if you know they are and their record backs them up. I just hate how all we ever hear are these stories of people that are ripping people off. You know, I tell you guys that I don't like the poorest homeless person looking over people's backyards with the intent to take something, right? But if you think that I'm okay with the richest people out there stealing from other rich people, no, that's not okay either. I think all the people from top to bottom need to get a little jail time so they can understand the mistakes that they've made. And when you let people use money that they stole to get the best lawyers in the world to defend themselves and to get stays and, you know, hey, let's postpone this till next year, and meanwhile your elderly client is getting more and more elderly, you know, there's something really, really kind of crappy about that. I don't even find joy in the idea of punishing the super elderly. Their punishment is the life that they're in, because most of us, when we're super elderly, you know, 85 and older, most of us have enough pain and trouble with the world as it is. And I don't care who you are. If your goal is to retire a mega millionaire, when you're 70 and 80 years old, you don't really get the urge to live a life like Tom Girardi did. I don't know what his deal was. Maybe he just always loved being in the limelight. I don't know. Apparently, he was the Aaron Brockovich lawyer. Another great movie from back in the day, right? The Aaron Brockovich side of this is that apparently Tom would tell his clients, hey, you've seen Aaron Brockovich. I'm all about stopping corporate greed. Meanwhile, he's robbing you blind. That's crazy. Only in America. Actually, that sounds like one of those things you'd hear in Russia or Italy or Iran. That sounds like one of those stories that you'd hear everywhere, actually, doesn't it? So anyway, again, if you're a lawyer and you're one of these lawyers that, hey, I do a lot of pro bono work and this, that, and the other, I know that good lawyers exist. Same with politicians, right? I know that good politicians exist. But at the same time, you know, let's say politicians weren't called politicians. Let's say they were called criminals. There are so many people that it is their ideal to grow up and become this politician, this senator, this congressman. And it just kind of blows me away, because it's like agreeing to be part of a club that's not really that prestigious, you know? And same with lawyers and attorneys. It's like, yeah, you're gonna go into a profession that's gonna probably pay you heavily, but a lot of times you're gonna end up taking that pay, and just like everybody else, you're gonna wanna make more this year than you did last year, and you're gonna wanna make more tomorrow than you did today. Nothing wrong with that in theory, right? But the problem with that is that it leads to people doing unscrupulous things to hit their goals. I think what we ought to do is we ought to have all lawyers take a course in minimalism. Less is more. As a matter of fact, that's my number one thought on finances. If you can get used to being happy with less, you'll end up having a lot more in life. So many people aren't happy with one Mercedes. They want a Lexus, a Mercedes, a Bentley, you know, a Suburban. You remember back in the day, every housewife and house husband wanted the Suburban, right? Just some giant gas guzzling vehicle, just for status. Nobody needed the giant Suburban but everybody had one. Why? Because that was the status vehicle of choice, you know, for the middle class. It kind of showed that you were a little something special. You know, you were okay with, you know, getting 15 miles to the gallon while everybody else was getting 25 or 30 miles to the gallon. That's just the way life is. There's nothing I'm going to say that can change that. And if you think for a second there's not a piece of me that wishes I had 7 or 8 figures in the bank, you're crazy. I do want those same things. I just want to know, is there a way to get there, you know, where you don't have to step over people, you don't have to lie, steal, or cheat, you know? And I'm starting to think, that there's almost not a way to get there. Well, Jesse, we slowly but surely bought houses and invested in real estate. Those people are probably the best people to look at on how to get successful in life. You slowly but surely buy a house, you pay it off by paying a little bit extra on your mortgage each month. Then you slowly but surely get higher paying jobs as you hit your 30s, 40s, and 50s, staying married, of course, right? Your kids slowly get to go off to school and college. Meanwhile, you and your wife start to invest in a second and third property. Those second and third properties you convert into rentals. Why? So then you have a situation where you're making passive income, right? Now, what'll happen if you go this route? You'll end up having neighbors and tenants from hell that make it darn near impossible to turn a profit. This goes back to you're darned if you do, you're darned if you don't. Everybody and their brother gets rich off real estate except you. But then you realize if you look around, there's a lot of people that have tried to get rich in real estate, but they did it the wrong way. You're supposed to buy when the housing market goes lower, right? And you're supposed to sell when the houses go up. Too many people go the reverse of that. And that happens with the stock market too. By the time you hear about a hot up and coming stock, it's usually too late. That's why I think the best thing to do when it comes to any type of investment is pay off your debts first. Look at what the interest is on your credit card. You want a great way to start making money? Pay off those high interest credit cards. Become debt free. Man, when you're debt free, you feel like a weighted vest has come off. Sherry Ann, you ever wear your weighted vest for a walk? And you don't even really know that it's on you after a while, and you're like, I don't know if this is really doing much help. It just makes me feel warmer, right? But then you take it off and you realize, holy crap, that thing was holding me back, you know? Anyway, I love when the weather's like this. It gives me a little boost of energy. I put my videos out 2 hours earlier. So instead of 7 a.m., I put it out at 5 a.m. just because a lot of you wrote little notes to me yesterday that you kind of enjoyed that the video was available a little earlier. Guys, that was done on accident. Sometimes I'm editing and I'm uploading a video at midnight, and I think I set it for 7 a.m., but for whatever reason, I must have just kept it at midnight, and so it was available. But what I did this morning is instead of 7 a.m., I set the video for 5 a.m. Now, if that doesn't quite work with the East Coast folks and you want me to go 1 more hour earlier, let me know and I'll just make it for 4 a.m. in case some of the people on the East Coast want to watch it while they're walking early in the morning. I can do that. I want you guys to have a happy hump day. Yes, I know it's your Thursday, but remember, when we walk 7 days a week, Thursday becomes our Venter's Hump Day. So happy Venter's Hump Day. This is that day where, again, we only have 2 weeks left in this challenge. People have not been really writing too much about what they're doing, and I don't think that's a negative. I think that's a positive. Let me tell you why. When you're focusing constantly on your weight, the scale doesn't move. When you do things right long term, in other words, I don't need to look at the scale to keep my butt walking every day. I don't need to look at the scale to drink predominantly water and to avoid sugar. And if you do that with me, whether it's for 1 month, 2 months, or 3, you're going to start to notice some really amazing results. And Sean, you're just like me. The next time I do my lab work,
I'm really interested to see how different it is now that I weigh, about 20 pounds, 25 pounds less. Also, this go round, I'm feeling just twice as muscular as I did when I first started. So if you guys are having similar results, let me know. And have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.